A blaring siren at the start of the day was meant to crank up the pressure on negotiators to take dramatic steps. In hallways, conference rooms, and on their phones, national delegations searched for the right words and often couldn't find them, such as how to set up a carbon trading market, so-called Article 6.
Not really very happy because quite a number of issues in Article 6 have not been concluded.
Activists wanted an explicit statement about ditching fossil fuels. Instead, in the draft agreement, they got a sentence about eliminating so-called inefficient subsidies.
They're weasel words. They're loopholes to allow countries to continue to increase production and emissions.
By afternoon, activists had had enough. Hundreds staged a mass walkout calling COP26 a failure.
All of the leaders, they say such nice and green words, but when we read the cover decision, it's so bad.
Later, one of Canada's most prominent environmentalists, Green MP Elizabeth May, suggested the activists' verdict was too harsh, that getting big oil nations to even mention fossil fuels in a binding document is some progress.
It is the first time, believe it or not, it's the first time that the words fossil fuels have appeared in a climate declaration coming out of a COP.
There were other high points. Rivals China and the U.S. agreed to work together on climate, and there were side deals such as halting deforestation. But developing nations want a new fund created for richer countries to compensate them for damage from pollution, potentially a huge bill. The Canadian delegation was among those that pushed back. Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault suggested the plan needs more work.
I don't think we're at a stage where we are talking about new funding mechanisms being created, but we are very supportive of seeing the conversation on loss and damages move forward.
Negotiators still could not agree on the outstanding issues by the Friday night deadline. So whether global climate action inches along or ends with a surprising bold move may not be known until at least Saturday. Chris Brown, CBC News, Glasgow.
Let's bring in our senior meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaff. And Joe, from Chris, we heard kind of what we know about the state of negotiations. But from a scientific standpoint, where do things stand for the planet?
Well, Ian, 1.5 degrees Celsius has really been the backbone of the talks over the past 2 weeks. And the science shows us that a warming world means the impacts warm exponentially. Increased flooding, drought, heat domes, all every tenth of a degree getting much worse. And we're really seeing that impact in Canada's north and island nations, which is why they were the group really pushing for that 1.5 target back in Paris. We know we're not quite there with the pledges, and we know we have one more year for countries to issue new pledges trying to close that gap.
So you've been there for a week now, and I'm fascinated to hear what it's been like kind of outside of the official negotiations.
Ian, it's almost like two separate conferences have been happening at the same time. Inside these walls, the corporate negotiations. Outside, I've been talking all week to climate activists, human rights and Indigenous groups. And while they're feeling discouraged that their message for rapid reduction from fossil fuels and a much more aggressive text has fallen on deaf ears, I am hearing hope that they're walking away with newfound connections and energy so that they can keep the fight going no matter what happens, when it happens, when those 197 countries finally sign in.
Johanna, always great to have you on the show. Thank you.
You're welcome.